Hello PSIR students, today we are going to discuss a very important English thinker mentioned in your syllabus, that is Thomas Hobbes. So he was 16th, 17th century thinker. He witnessed very turbulent phase and his birth was premature because Spain had attacked England. At that point of time his birth took place. So he claimed that I and fear were born together. He also claimed that man is guided by two instincts, inclination or aversion. Means inclination means likes and aversion means intense dislike. And man's action is guided by two consideration, that is one fear and second self-preservation. So Hobbes witnessed very turbulent phase in England. In the 1640s, there was civil war in England between royalists versus parliamentarians, Puritans or Protestants on one hand versus Roman Catholics on the other. So in that turbulent phase in 1649, Charles I, English king, was beheaded by the people. So he was against any kind of revolt against monarchy. He ardently favored absolute monarchy because he was the tutor of royal family, and he claimed that individual nature was bad, selfish, brutish, quarrelsome, jealous, antisocial, animal type, hedonistic. Hedonistic means pleasure and power seeking individual. So if individual nature was so bad, then in a state of nature, that is when there was no civil society and when there was no state, there was no social contract, there was a period of anarchy, lawlessness, jungle raj, war of all against all, life of everyone was uncertain, strong was devouring the weak, और strong शेर हैं तो उनको भी शवार से तो मिलेंगे, अगर नहीं भी मिले तो weak will attack the strong from the back. So life of everyone was uncertain, and the liberty of individuals or freedom of individuals were detrimental to each other because human nature was bad. So natural law was might was right. To end the anarchy and lawlessness and jungle raj, rational individuals came together to have social contract, to create civil society and state by one contract in one go. So social contract involved individuals surrendered all their natural rights unconditionally to the state except one, that is right of self-preservation. That was the most important natural right that individual retained with himself. So what was the method used by Hobbes to come to the conclusion that human nature was bad? Machiavelli's conclusion is also same, but Machiavelli's method was inductive, based on observation, particular to general. But Hobbes' method is deductive, that is general to particular, predetermined conclusion. Logic and reasoning is given to prove that human nature was bad. So that is general to particular, predetermined conclusion. And to supplement his deductive method, you use scientific method also. Hobbes is called Galileo of political science. Like Galileo believed that whole universe is made up of matter. Matter is made up of particles. Particles are made up of, particles are having motion. So Hobbes agreed with that, but applied those scientific things in psychology, in civil philosophy, to understand the human nature. So that is also called resolutive compositive method. Resolving, and that is breaking the macro things into micro things and reassembly of the micro things again into macro to understand the whole. So the whole is divided into parts to see the composition of the whole, and the parts are reassembled compositive. So he claimed that geometry was the most perfect science. And he also claimed that there are universe made up of matter, matter made up of particles, particles are in motion. And this motion of particles determine our need, greed. That makes us selfish, brutish, quarrelsome, jealous, antisocial. That shapes our psychology, human behavior. But human behavior is quite unpredictable because the intensity of movement of particles are different in different individuals. So man cannot understand the kind of movement of particles in others' mind. So man cannot understand the psychology of others. This is the reason of mistrust, anarchy, lawlessness. And he first used physics by inspired from Galileo, then applied to psychology, then applied to civil philosophy. So this is the method, that is deductive method and resolutive compositive method he used to prove that human nature was bad. And that gloomy state of nature necessitated social contract, and by social contract the all natural rights were surrendered unconditionally. Because Hobbes' individualism does not give priority to liberty. It gives, its individualism is defined in terms of security rather than liberty. Locke preferred rights, then liberty, then security. Rousseau preferred liberty. So different thinkers have defined individualism in different way. For Bentham, individualism was utilitarian individual. For J.S. Mill, also champion of individual liberty. For T.H. Green, liberty was defined in terms of capacity. But Hobbes rejected, Hobbes was earlier, T.H. Green was in 19th century England. T.H. Green, for T.H. Green, liberty was capacity. But Hobbes rejected that liberty is different, capacity is different. Capacity is internal thing that has nothing to do with liberty. A patient lacks capacity to walk, not liberty to walk. Liberty means absence of external constraints. Liquid in a bottle has no liberty to move outwards. That is restriction on liberty. That is external impediment, is threat to liberty, not internal capacity. So, state cannot play a role of capacity building to ensure liberty, according to Hobbes, unlike T.H. Green. So, different thinkers have defined individualism in a different way. And Hobbes' name of the book is Leviathan. Leviathan means sea monster, and that is correlated with the state. State is all powerful. So, state is just like machine, means individualism is the end, and individualism is in terms of security rather than liberty. Because Hobbes say that liberty is where law is silent, state is absent. Means liberty was there in a state of nature, but that liberty was dangerous for each other. For him, security was the priority, and for sake of security, this social contract was done. Civil society and state were formed for sake of individual. And Hobbes, the tutor of royal family, so he favored absolute monarchy. Absolute monarchy directly proportional to individualism. For Locke, limited government was reinforcing individual liberty, but for Hobbes, absolute monarchy is to contain the badness of human nature, to ensure the security of the individuals, which is individualism in opinion of Hobbes. So, sovereign was not party to the contract, above contract, beyond contract, not bound by the contract. Sovereign cannot be charged to violate the contract. Sovereign is the chief source of law. Sovereign is the chief interpreter of law. Sovereign will determine what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is moral, what is immoral. Hobbes did not favor separation of powers. He favored concentration of powers. So absolute monarchy he favored, which is the means that was meant to complement individualism. That is, absolute monarchy was directly proportional to individualism, unlike Locke. So there is absolute monarchy, and people were not given right to revolt against the state, because civil society and state were formed by one contract. So disintegration of a state will lead to disintegration of civil society as well, and we will move back to the state of nature, full of anarchy, lawlessness, which we cannot afford. So man is bad in nature, no doubt, but he is rational, and because of his rational faculty, all individuals came together to create civil society and state in one go. So there is absolute monarchy. There are absolute monarch who will be containing badness of human nature, and that is for individualism, because individual is rational, not the state. State is just like machine. Machine may be powerful, but it is man-made, artificial, based on social contract. And Hobbes allowed individual to retain right of self-preservation. Right of self-preservation, the most important natural right, was retained by Hobbes, which was not surrendered in the social contract. Thirdly, what will threaten right of self-preservation, which is a natural right, not a state-given right, will be interpreted by individual himself, not by the state. Fourthly, individual may refuse to render military service to the state if it endangers his life, because right of self-preservation is the most important natural right, not given by the state, natural right. And Hobbes never talked in terms of collective interest, social interest, common interest. He always talked about sum total of individual interest. So this is atomistic view of society, not pluralist view of society. That society is consisting of sum total of rational individuals, and rational individuals must be allowed to pursue the rationally calculated self-interest. And Hobbes is called perhaps greatest English individualist by Professor Weber. This has been asked by UPSC so many times, that Hobbes was perhaps greatest English individualist. But his individualism prioritizes security over liberty. His individualism, at the center it is security, well-being, containing badness of human nature. That was his priority. So Leviathan means the all-powerful state, absolute monarchy. So Hobbes favors social contract individualism in contrast to medieval thought of divine theory of state. His book Leviathan was burnt by Catholic Church, because he rejected the theory of two swords. Two sword means two authority. Authority of state in temporal or worldly matters, and authority of church and pope in religious matters. Hobbes rejected that. No divine theory of state, no theory of two swords. State would be absolute, Leviathan would be absolute in both worldly matters and religious matters. Church and pope will not be interfering in political matters. And state is not divine. It is man-made, it is created by rational individuals through social contract. So contractual basis of rights that Hobbes talked about. And this is the reason why Hobbes is called greatest English individualist. So Hobbes' various questions in UPSC has been asked, that how he is part of social contract individualism, how is part of mechanistic theory of state, what method, deductive method as well as resolutive compositive method is followed by Hobbes, how Hobbes was inspired from Galileo, how he used geometry, physics, psychology and civil philosophy. So he applied physical science or physics in psychology and that of civil philosophy to prove that human nature was bad. And how he was part of social contract individualism or liberalism, capitalism, because the time period in which Hobbes was there was very turbulent time period of England. He did not witness glorious revolution. Glorious revolution was witnessed by Locke. which was bloodless revolution, which witnessed power transfer from monarchy to parliament. So Locke will favor limited government, Locke will favor legislative supremacy, Locke will define individualism in terms of liberty and rights rather than security. Locke is called father of classical liberalism because he favored constitutional government with limitation on power holders. And Locke's method is inductive, that is based on observation. Nothing is imprinted on the mind of the people which is to be discovered. Everything will be observed, visible, empirically demonstrated. So Hobbes' method was deductive, but Locke's method was inductive, and both are part of the same social contract individualism, but there is a difference in nature of the social contract, the nature of a state, the nature of government, the different stages of social contract for Locke. But for Hobbes, the same contract will lead to formation of civil society and state both. So no right to revolt, but Locke gave people means majority to revolt against the state, and for Locke disintegration of state will not lead to disintegration of civil society. For Hobbes, unconditional surrender of natural rights, but for Locke, conditional surrender of natural rights. For Locke, government act as a trustee, caretaker, manager of life, liberty, property. LLP, life, liberty, property, most important natural right that were not surrendered by individuals to the state. So in this way, Hobbes and Locke are part of both social contract individualism. So in brief, we have just discussed Hobbes. Thank you. That's for today.